Now, let's go to David Callahan. He's actually co-founder of the think tank Demos, and he's also the author of the book, Fortunes of Change, The Rise of the Liberal Rich and the Remaking of America. Fascinating. David, welcome to the Young Turks.
Great to be here.
All right, so when you went into this book, what did you want to investigate initially, and what were some of your, let's just say, assumptions a little bit?
Well, I signed a contract to write a book on the rich, in 2007 when this, stock market was booming, the real estate market was booming, the super rich were on top, and I started out with wanting to emphasize that this culture of greed had just gotten out of control. And instead I became intrigued by something a little more counterintuitive, which is all the people on the left who were rich and giving money to the Democratic Party and giving money to environmental groups and giving money to gay rights groups. And I kind of veered off into this completely different terrain and ended up writing a book about the liberal rich, not the, bad guys that we're all familiar with.
So was there a way of knowing, as you did your research, what percentage of the rich, I mean, maybe it's rough, maybe it's not rough, I don't know, are liberal and what percentage are conservative?
Well, Obama won Americans making over $200,000 by 8 percentage points in the 2008 election. Obama won 8 out of 10 of the richest counties in America in that election. That said, I argue that most rich people remain Republican, and it's still a small minority that's actually what you might consider liberal. I think that there's a lot of centrists and independents who might have voted for Obama, but the number of really liberal rich remains small, but they got a lot of money and they have a lot of influence.
Okay, but overall, 8% more voted for Obama, so that's an interesting trend. We talk a lot about how the Republican Party goes to protect the rich. Let me dive to that tangent for a second. So if they're not getting their votes, why do they bother?
Well, I think that the Republican Party is, it believes in free market tax cuts. It is so enamored of the ideology of the free market that it's constantly doing things that are in the interests of corporate America, and so much of its money still does come from corporate America. And I mean, the wealthy get a lot of favors done for them by the GOP. There's no question about that.
So there's a couple of different factors at play here, then, because we have the liberal rich, we have the conservative rich, and then we have corporations, which is a whole different thing, right? And they have a ton of money, and it's not just the votes that these politicians are going for, it's the money, right? So they can get it from either one of those sides, but they could also get it from corporations, and corporations, well, they're sometimes split as well because they like to play both sides and they like to buy both sides. But lately, groups like the Chamber of Commerce have been going significantly to the Republicans.
Well, what you find if you look at which kinds of corporate leaders give money to which political party, what you find is that the Republicans raise a lot of money from the defense industry, from the energy industry, from agribusiness, from the construction industry, these kind of old economy industries. And the Democrats raise a lot of money from Silicon Valley, from the tech industry, from the entertainment industry, from the legal profession and law firms. The Democrats raise a lot of money from this sort of new economy wealthy. And my book really looks at the rise of the knowledge economy as being a big explanation for why more rich people are giving money to Democrats, because, a lot of these people who've made money in the knowledge economy, they're super educated people. They're, a lot of them went to elite universities. They grew up in blue America. They're liberals. Now they have money, and their politics don't change much just because they're rich. And those are the people who are helping bankroll this resurgent Democratic Party we've seen, starting in 2004, 2006.
let me add a wrinkle to that. And we're talking to David Callahan. He wrote Fortunes of Change about this phenomenon. Somebody like Bill Gates is a smart guy. So, whether he wound up going to Harvard for a little bit and then, of course, famously dropped out. But he's not going to back Sarah Palin. It's just not going to happen. It's just inconceivable. So you're going to Silicon Valley. How many people could possibly back Sarah Palin? 3.5 of those guys, right? So now, on the other hand, what do you think? Well, the other rich that are backing the Republicans and the Sarah Palins of the world, they're rich. They must be smart too. But my theory on that, David, is that that's not true, because a lot of the money that the conservative rich have is left over. It's somebody like Richard Mellon-Scaife, who didn't earn a dime. He just had the money. He inherited his money. Steve Forbes inherited his money. And then you have the oil guys who, happen to find a gusher in their backyard. I'm way oversimplifying. But it's a hell of a lot easier making money when you got oil in your backyard. So I'm not convinced those guys are that bright. They are greedy.
Yeah, well, I think that you hit on a great point, which is that, the Bill Gateses of the world, they're not going to go for the party of Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, and Sarah Palin. And I make the point that the wealthy class and the Republican Party are going in opposite directions. The upper class is becoming more educated, more secular, more based in urban America, particularly on the coast, and the Republican Party is becoming more religious, more based in small-town America, and less educated. And, those are just two very different trajectories. And also the Republican Party with its xenophobia, its anti-immigration stance, its kind of jingoism and militarism abroad, that's a turnoff as well to a lot of these educated, wealthy voters.
But there is a wrinkle here, because this is a fascinating topic, and there's a lot of twists and turns here. Because I agree with you, and as I said, I don't think those guys, whether it's entertainment industry, Silicon Valley, entrepreneurs, I don't think a lot of them are going to go vote for a party with the titular head of Rush Limbaugh. It's just so it's against their DNA. Let's put it that way, right? But those same guys, a lot of them still agree with the corporate ethos, which is, in my opinion, a steamroller. So they're going to say, hey, look, business needs to make money, et cetera, et cetera. So if their companies happen to buy a couple of politicians, that probably does make some sense to them.
Well, yeah, and that's what you see. A lot of corporations spend a lot of money on their PACs, and the PACs give contributions that are often quite different than what the individual corporate leaders are spending money on. Often the PACs will give money to who's ever in power, while the corporate leaders will many of them will give money to Democrats. But just to underscore the point, which is that the corporate world is increasingly divided, and you have a lot of corporate leaders who actually believe that government is good, that we need to invest more in education and scientific research and infrastructure, who believe that you need to have taxes, you need to raise taxes in order to pay for that stuff. And these people believe that, with strong government, higher taxes, more investments, we'll have more prosperity in the long run, not less, and everybody will get rich. More rich, and that's a very different mindset than the kind of libertarian, anti-government ethos that prevails among sort of right-wing corporate leaders. So it's complicated, right? There's a lot of, as you say, wrinkles to the picture here.
But, David, let me challenge you on that a little bit, because I'm going to guess here that a lot of the people that told you that and corporations that you researched, et cetera, were, for lack of a better word, newer corporations, people that still had their entrepreneurs that were in charge. Because my sense of it is that once a corporation becomes entrenched and there is no person behind it anymore, Steve Jobs is not at Apple anymore. Apple, a generation from now, will be like all the other corporations. It'll be a machine. And if the CEO does not agree that they should take advantage of the laws and buy the politicians so they can make more money and limit competition, the machine will remove that CEO and get a new CEO who will buy the politicians.
Well, I think you make a good point. These corporations are machines. They're focused on the bottom line. They'll kind of steamroll anything in the way. They'll destroy the environment. They'll, undermine the livelihoods of workers and all of that. On the other hand, what you do find is even in those machines, a lot of the individual executives are people who might be Democrats. So in a way that the corporation is kind of at war with itself. You know, you have baby boomer leaders, often who are Democrats, who care about the environment, care about social responsibility, and the corporate machine overall, which doesn't necessarily have those concerns.
So finally, let me ask you about how this all affects politics, right? Because the conservative old guard, they give a ton of money, whether it's the Koch industry brothers giving just millions upon millions to all the different think tanks and conservative groups, so-called grassroots groups, which is a comedy, whether it's Murdoch, who actually finances a lot of publications that lose money, including New York Post. He makes money with Fox News, but loses money on a lot of other things. Richard Mellon-Scaife, and the list goes on of these multimillionaires, billionaires who fund the conservative infrastructure. So one part of that question is that eventually going to die out as the Richard Mellon-Scaifes of the world pass on, because they run out of money or whatever happens, right? And number two, have the liberals built a similar infrastructure, or are they not as specifically political?
To answer your first question, I think that there's always going to be wealthy right-wingers in America who are trying to block progressive change. To answer your second question, a huge amount of new liberal money has gone to create a new progressive infrastructure in this country. George Soros, Peter Lewis, the insurance magnate, Herb and Marion Sandler, a retired banking couple, and the list goes on the left of people who have pumped tens of millions of dollars into building a new progressive infrastructure. The Center for American Progress, which is now the left-wing counterpart to the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C., was funded by several billionaire donors who basically created it out of thin air. Media Matters for America, the media watchdog run by David Brock, also funded by a bunch of rich people. The Democracy Alliance, which is a network of wealthy individuals, is putting tens of millions of dollars every year into progressive groups, many of which did not exist just 10 years ago. So there's a new surge of money, and the money on the electoral side has been even greater, a lot of it going through those so-called 527 organizations. You know, George Soros personally spent $23 million in 2004 to help elect John Kerry.
You know, people say that, and I guess the reason I was a little skeptical, and I totally believe what you're saying, is that I've never seen a dime of it. People always say, like, oh, yeah, I bet you're funded by Soros. Hey, George, over here. I guess it didn't trickle down to us. But it is a fascinating phenomenon, and your book is very interesting. It's called Forces of Change, The Rise of the Liberal Rich and the Remaking of America. David Callahan, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
All right. We'll be right back.